Hi, welcome to the next video of the series of the theory of teaching and methodology. Now I'm going to start with the first video that gives you a sample lesson on guard retention that I used, and I will try to explain and illustrate what I've already talked about in the past 11 videos and give some real-life application of what I do in lessons. To really understand what I'm talking about, you should already have watched my videos on learning objectives, on how I use different methods and drills and apply them, and how I structure a training block, because then everything will actually make sense. We will build on that. I will try to explain one or two things that are crucial here and there, but in general I assume that you have seen those videos. As always, you have to plan lessons for people that are actually in the lesson. So you cannot, or you can plan lessons for any class, but the more you know who will be attending your class, the better you can actually plan the lesson to actually meet their demands. So in this case, there are no newbies, so everybody has been on the mats for at least maybe 2 or 3 months. So they have some basic understanding of what grappling is. They have some knowledge of guard and all the different positions and some submissions. They range from white to purple belt, so from beginner to intermediate, maybe even advanced. And my classes are usually 90 minutes long. The lesson that I'm going to present here is the first lesson of the training block. So this is how I introduced the topic of guard and guard retention, especially focusing on guard retention in this one. And the first lesson will kind of set the scene. So I will help them answer the question, what is guard? What is guard passing? What is guard retention? And the most important aspect of guard retention is to protect the elbow knee space, or to regain control of that space. And this is what I want to introduce to them in this lesson, without actually focusing on specific techniques, too much at least. See where they are, using this as a tool to have a look at their level of guard passing, guard retention, understanding of what's going on in the guard game. For all the tasks that I will present in this video, I have usually the lower ranked person do the task first, so that they have a true learning experience and do not simply copy what they see a higher rank do to them, and then they simply think, okay, the blue belt, purple belt, 3-stripe white belt, he did move X, and so I have to do something similar. I usually want the lower ranked person, without being already kind of manipulated by different techniques and influenced by what they have seen other people do in this lesson, have a try, be creative at solving the task that they are given, and have a understanding of what they can actually do without any education in that field. So the lead-in after the warm-up will be answering the first 3 questions and lead into the 4th question or 4th point of this lesson. So first I want them to experiment what guard is. So they should spend 4 minutes in any type of guard, switching top and bottom on their own, and they should do all the submissions they can think of, maybe even some sweeps. Simply, if you do a submission, you usually stay pretty close to the guard that you're playing, or in that guard situation. If you do sweeps, you obviously end up still in guard, but maybe even in a control position. So I would like them to have or to go for submissions there, to play around with different attachments, points of control, maybe even using some techniques to manipulate the balance of the person, and then go for submissions. After that, they would spend some time on passing guard, do any guard pass they know of to go through, around, over or under the legs, simply to introduce the passing motions and movement and to get them warmed up, maybe even stacked here and there so that they are ready to then move on from there. After that, after they've done submissions and passing, it's time for guard retention. So now I would ask them to spend a couple of minutes to trying to pass somebody's guard, and they are not allowed to use submissions first, and the bottom guy simply has the task to stop the person from passing the guard. I usually do not give any other restrictions there, but sometimes it's necessary to tell them, okay, try to stop them very early, stop them somewhere in the middle, or stop them as late as possible, for example, to help them focus on specific or certain distances to work on. After this, I would ask them to get together in the middle of the mats and talk about their possible solutions, or the solutions that they come up with to stop people from getting around the guard. By giving them the first 8 to 10 minutes to play around in guard and do some guard passing, I try to make sure that everybody knows what guard passing is and what you should try to do while passing guard. And they should be able to come up with pretty good solutions on how to stop somebody from passing your guard. They will usually talk about framing with the hands, framing with their feet, moving away, sitting up, standing up, turning away. So there are lots of different possible solutions, and they are all fine. They don't have to be the perfect solution, but they have to come up with something that might work, that they then can develop and get better at, maybe using better timing, or being more aware of body mechanics and how to apply them properly. And so in this lesson, they kind of understand what they already know, what they don't know, what they know a little bit of, and what they can improve on and should improve on. Then we would talk about how they can protect the elbow-knee space after collecting different ideas. Maybe one person finds out that they can frame with their hands, another person finds out that they can frame with their forearm, like a collar tie. Somebody else talks about framing with their feet, pummeling with their feet. And so I would make them do the same drill again, trying to pass somebody's guard and trying to stop them from passing the guard, and now implementing the things that they've come up with themselves, and also what they've been told by the other couples or pairs who have maybe found different solutions that you did not think of, and now you can experiment with these as well and figure out if they are valid or not. And then later you can they should get together again and tell the person who had the idea that it was a good idea and what you did to make it even better, maybe, so that we really get a discussion going on that helps people and tells them, okay, you did a great job at finding a possible solution. Maybe you can get better at it by doing this and that and focusing on this detail. Maybe experiment with a certain movement or certain placement of your body parts, of your limbs, so that you can actually make it into something applicable in sparring situations. Usually they come up with, I have figured that usually they come up with simply going into this shell or grilled chicken position, or that they simply try to turn away if they know how to play turtle or running man. Everybody tries to frame with arms and legs, and they also figure out that it's a good idea to do some grip fighting and pummeling to be really early stage defending guard passes. I then decided, because I thought that this would be the most beneficial to them at that point, to move on with the grilled chicken position and to have a closer look at how to make this a solid trench, as Breed calls it, to fight from. So you can watch Chris Payne's video on the grilled chicken and guard passing, guard retention that he did with BJJ Globetrotters there. Then you have basic understanding of what I did with them after that. And then get some rolling in with some built-in experimentation mode. So while rolling, when you get to guard, then you get into experimentation mode. You turn down the intensity and the speed, and you go more into this fuck you jiu-jitsu style of training, where you deliberately give somebody grips or a certain position and let them play there, and you simply try to survive. So in this case, the guard passer would not attack with 100% to pass the guard, but would play along a little bit, and the bottom player can then practice what they have tried to make work or to figure out in the lesson about guard retention. And when they did the guard retention, recovered some type of guard and got their points of connection to then start their offensive behavior and attacks, then the experimentation mode is over and the top guy is allowed to then grip fight, strip the grips, and so on and so forth. By that, beginners usually have a different focus for the following lessons than somebody who's an intermediate or advanced. The beginners will pretty much stick to what I tell them to do, because they will get certain times where they can try to figure out things themselves, but I will also teach them specific techniques, concepts that they then can apply. So there is lots of guidance. I will put a lot of restrictions on them so that they actually really focus on that area that I want them to develop. There will be less complexity because of that, and that's due to their low level of knowledge and skill, because they simply have not the skills to really understand what they should focus on while drilling and how to manipulate the drills in a way that it makes sense for them in that lesson for the specific goal of that lesson. Intermediate students will be less guided. There will be less restrictions, so maybe I will show them 2 or 3 different ways that they can choose to try to make work for them, and improve on something that might be a little bit less specific to this lesson. There will be more complexity, of course. They will try to implement the things much quicker into real life progressive drilling sparring situations. They have already the knowledge and the skill to do that. On the one hand, the grappling skill and knowledge, as well as the skill and knowledge about methods and how to apply them to really make the most of the lesson. And there are some advanced guys and girls. They know what they want to work on. Maybe their topic, like guard retention, is something that they are not interested in. Then I will allow them to do something completely different, more like an inverted classroom, which I will make another video on in the future, because I don't think that advanced people should be restricted at all. Maybe sometimes coaches have to restrict them and pinpoint, okay, you suck at a certain aspect of jiu-jitsu, go work on that. Yes, but in general, advanced people really know what they should work on, and by that I have, I set fewer restrictions. They already have a high skill and a high level of knowledge, so they learn details, but it's more like perfecting their own game and understanding of grappling and BJJ. So in general, they have to do what they need to do. So if you're a beginner, you have to simply learn the very basics and basic techniques, and then develop the concepts and get an understanding of the concepts to then apply the techniques better, and also the different methods to use to actually get better at techniques and better at grappling. So I try to match the level by allowing beginners less freedom and advanced people to be very, very free with how they would like to spend their time on the mats, because they're old enough from a training age perspective that they can decide what they need. They usually should prepare what they want to do in the training session. And when I talk about what I'm going to do in the training session in the beginning, and they go, okay, I haven't done scissor sweeps in ages, maybe would it be a good idea to revisit that, then they can follow along. But if they go, oh, scissor sweeps again, I'm pretty good at scissor sweeps, I would rather do takedowns because I need that for my upcoming competition, or because on the last open mat I didn't score any takedowns, I need to work on that, and I would like to focus for 6 weeks on that, then why not do that? And by this I try to set the scene for individual improvement in a group setting. This is quite difficult from time to time because you have to try to manage the mat space, have an understanding of where each of your students is at, and this can be quite difficult at the beginning of your teaching career. After this introductory phase, which I described today, where I simply introduce the topic of the next weeks and already show some concepts and techniques, or people come up with possible solutions to the overarching problem and goal. There will be some longer phase where people can develop that area. The introductory phase is usually just 2 to 3 lessons, and then we have this developmental phase where we pick individual parts of that specific position or situation that we're working on, that we try to get better at. And this will be the longest phase. And after that, there will be some testing. As I already described, the developmental phase will also, throughout the developmental phase, we will increase complexity and intensity. And at the end, there will be some testing phase where we'll actually implement it into the guard game and in more live rolling and sparring sessions. So, next video, how to develop certain aspects of the guard retention block. And after that, some insights on how I test or make people test what they've learned from the introductory lesson all the way to the last lesson of this training block before moving on to the next. And how I use this testing at the end to already decide what I'm going to focus on in the next phase, because there, when you make people test things, you figure out what is going wrong, and then you can actually focus on what they need next. So see you next time.